Hi, everyone. My name is Ruby Powers with Powers Law Group in Houston, Texas. I'm a board certified immigration attorney, one of about 180 or so in Texas. And I am here today talking about the best practices for preparing for the asylum application and your client for the asylum interview or immigration court hearing. I would say this is a great course for a beginner and also intermediate for someone who's filed some applications or maybe affirmatively but not in removal proceedings and would like a refresher. I think it's always good to learn from each other as to best practices and experience. So a little bit about myself. I have my firm Powers Law Group in Houston, Texas for the last 13 years. I have been practicing 14 years, but even before that, I was in internships and not at nonprofits and immigration clinic at my law school, preparing and being exposed to asylum applications. My first time to ever be in immigration court was as a law student before I graduated and was representing two children from Honduras. I've run my law firm from Dubai remotely a decade or so ago, and I've also wrote a book about law practice management called Build and Manage Your Successful Immigration Law Practice Without Losing Your Mind. So let's go ahead and begin. So I'm speaking to you today from having, I'd say, 15 plus years of asylum experience because I have represented individuals over those many years from about 34 countries. And as you can see, it's quite a diverse group. I find that some practitioners have a niche in one area, maybe as the country has issues, and they might become a specialist in that. Depending on where you practice in the United States, you might, it's dependent on your clientele that you have access to. And my firm, as I am a solo practitioner or being able to owner of my own firm, I can choose the cases I'd like to take. And having become more of an expert in asylum over the years, we've had people come to us from around the country, and we've represented individuals, I think, in about 5 or so different asylum offices and about, I don't know, maybe 6 or so different courts around the country. And that's just, with, myself and occasionally some associates helping me. So we've had about a 90 to 95% approval rating. And we also are in the Fifth Circuit predominantly for most of these cases. Sometimes we travel, like we said, about to the other locations. But I bring this up because this is what I'm speaking from, having experience with a multitude of individuals from various countries. And I find that once I've done one or two from that country, then I'm able to bring a lot more context to subsequent cases. But when you're working on that first case from that country, it can be a little bit daunting, and you really have to, there's a steep learning curve. So let's move on. So today we're going to be talking about various learning outcomes and objectives, including determining the ideal components to an asylum application, supplemental evidence, and this can be applying to whether or not you're applying affirmatively or preparing for defensively. Second, we'll learn how to identify the best evidence needed for your client's case. Every case is a little bit different, and you want to do the best to represent them. Third, we'll talk about the 3 major parts of an asylum interview or hearing. And then fourth, we'll talk about how to prepare your client for the interview or for the defensive asylum immigration hearing. So as we begin, we are moving on to the basics of asylum, which is essential that we go over that because sometimes we forget these things and we need to be able to remember them. So, basics of asylum. People come to the United States all the time seeking protection, but asylum is unique and difficult. Lots of people think asylum is easy, or they might think that everybody's applying for asylum, everyone's getting asylum, but that's really not the case. And being a practitioner in a border state here, Texas, where lots of people enter from, and do attempt applying for asylum, I know that many people are not successful, and you can look just to the track records. I think Syracuse University puts together, and you can see the denial rates of judges based on where they are located You can see a lot of high denial rates in the Houston area, but in Texas in general. And you can look specifically to your courtroom.